What's good tonight with you all, folks? It's your man Donald King. I'm still in Indiana kicking it with my little boy. Yo, man, I got some folks in their feelings apparently today over the series of posts I put up regarding me not being a fan of people only, operative word only, hitting like on my posts or rushing to hit like on my posts when the posts are full of hearts or laugh emojis. It's them attempting to weaponize a valuation system against me towards undermining what I'm saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? And again, it's like, a lot of people, especially people who don't pay attention, who don't really focus on words, and who don't try to understand things, which ironically would be the same people who rush to try and hit like on stuff. First thing they do is like, oh, he thinks he's better than someone putting a like on his post. Like a cowardly ideologue. Like, they don't like to think, they just like to react. And nothing I do is based in reaction. It's all very weighted. It's all very planned out. And like, I would like to think that I have a very balanced perspective when it comes to dealing with things. And anybody who does things to be antagonistic, do you understand what I'm saying? Their goal is not to understand me to begin with. Their goal is simply to be subversive, to aggress against me in a way that won't draw out a direct response from me. But it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to throw some shade on you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you see something, and I made a mention of in one of my posts about seeing someone building a house of cards. You see someone building a house of cards, and let's say you don't like houses of cards. Doesn't have anything to do with you. If they're building their house of cards, go that way. But if you get it in your mind that it's your right, it's your place, and that you have the power and authority to invalidate what they're doing or diminish it in some way, shape, or form, well, then you go over to their house of cards and you start jumping and trying to knock it down for your own amusement and satisfaction. It's a cowardly way to aggress against someone. I don't care about likes or hearts or emojis or any of that other shit. I'm focused on the intention behind the behavior. If you're rushing to be the first to undermine something I'm saying with an attempt to assign a lesser value to it, then it means you see me as an adversary. You see me through a lens of hostility. If you see me through a lens of hostility, then it's like there's no scenario in which I can't view you as a rival. Like, you come along and it's like no one makes you do it. Look here. If somebody does something that moves you, you'd be like, yeah, thank you. And whatever is being paid towards the person, you say, hey, you know what? Hey, I say that that's worthy of that too. But if something doesn't move you, you keep it moving. Keep it moving. And I want you to understand, it's not just me. It's people in general. Like, it's like I'm in a couple of shit posting meme groups, and some of the stuff that they post in there is absolutely hilarious. Some of the memes are absolutely hilarious, and then all of a sudden, you get one or two cowardly motherfuckers who just want to injure something with their contempt coming along and putting a like there. Not because it wasn't funny, but just to, in so many words, let's say, you know what? I'm going to make what you presented about me and my sense of value, so I'll give you a 5 out of 10. I'll give you a 6. It's so narcissistic. It's so incredibly narcissistic to believe that the value you assign to things is more important than the things themselves. I know that there's nothing to disagree with in anything that I say if you're thinking hard enough. If you actually take the time to try to properly understand the things that I say, you're never going to find anything to disagree with. And the reason I can say this is because I'm not working through idealism. I'm describing principles in real time. I'm describing the mechanism behind how shit works in reality. If you're an honest person, then you're going to be like, oh my God, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because it's based on what I can see, not based on what I think, feel, or believe. I'm describing things that I'm reading. And this is what's consistent with reality. If you find some way to not appreciate what I'm saying, the only way that you'll find a reason or way to not appreciate what I'm saying is, one, you're an agent of corruption, or two, and or you're out of sync with reality and you're sort of lost in your identity, and you want to injure and invalidate everything that doesn't reflect your fledgling little identity back to you, and or you're a hater, or two, you just didn't take time to fucking figure out what the fuck was being said. That's the only reason why you have any reason to disagree with anything I have to say. I'm not guessing. Either you dislike me as a person, or more accurately, you dislike how I make you feel as a person, and you want to lash out in some little cowardly way, or you didn't take time to understand me. Only reasons. The only reasons to disagree with anything I have to say. And I'm not saying this because it's like I self-idealize. I'm saying this because it's like everything that I see through the perspective, I don't readily agree with. Again, it's like, look at it like this. Imagine reading what's on a computer screen, right? You're reading a computer screen, and then that computer screen says something that doesn't match what you've learned and what you think is right. And you have to weigh the consistency of everything you've read on that screen against how right you've been in the past without reading from this screen. So it's like when I'm reading from this screen, when I'm reading and when I'm reading reality through the avatar perspective, I'm never sold on the idea of me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. As a matter of fact, every time I start trying to factor myself into it, I lose sight of how it's supposed to work. Avatar perspective doesn't stand for narcissism from anyone, self included. So when I start trying to factor me into the equation, the site starts getting all wonky. So I have to try and keep everything as objective and mechanical as possible. But that's the only reason you have to have any sort of issue with anything that I have to say. And if you find issues and reasons to try to devalue me, I know it's because you don't like me. You're focused on the man, not the message. If you're focusing on the man, not the message, it isn't like you understand anything I'm saying anyway. So I'm getting rid of you. I'm blocking you. We might run into each other on the streets. Hey, no love lost. Hey, look, you wasn't appreciating what I was doing, so it's like, you know what? If I'm not worthy of, whatever is being paid towards me in the moment from you, and you got to figure out a way to sort of knock it down a peg, then, it isn't like you were benefiting from it anyway. So, hell, I did you a favor. We'll just see each other when we do. How did Bone Thugs say it? See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. Yeah, we'll see each other at the crossroads. Not as peers. Anyway, it's warm in here. Every time I try and shoot from this location, I get bad reception, and there's lots of fragging in there, so I don't know how this is going to turn out. The point of tonight's podcast is the actual cost of things in reality. All right? And it actually ties into what I was talking about towards the beginning of the podcast. All right? The actual cost of things in reality. Humans have this terrible way of making agreements with themselves. That's what a belief is. A belief is an agreement you make with yourself about how something is in reality. when there's a shared belief among people, then they've agreed among each other and with themselves that what they interpret from reality is indicative of and or representative of reality itself. When you make agreements with yourself about reality, the problem is you stop observing reality and you start looking to the agreements you've made with yourself about reality to inform you about reality. In other words, you start blocking reality out in order to preserve this agreement you made with yourself. Agreements you make with yourself necessarily exclude others and exclude reality. When I talk about reality and the function of reality performing through me, not standing, not tolerating, not standing for and or tolerating any type of aggression towards it, I think the greatest irony in that assessment is that humans, well, you guys are, we're so trained through the socialization process to be narcissists that we don't actually realize when we're being aggressive dicks a lot of times. We're so used to being assholes that we don't even know when we're being assholes. You know? People are kind of like, oh, well, how dare he say I can't do a thing that I want to do? And I'm like, yo, hey, you're not being a dick to me. You're being a dick to a thing that doesn't stand for it. And that how that factors into what I was talking about just a few minutes earlier is people make agreements with themselves about the cost of the infraction. People make agreements with themselves about the cost of the infraction. Oh, I just did this. It's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal to who? Reality does not recognize or conform to agreements humans make with themselves about anything. Just because you think something isn't a big deal doesn't mean the system of reality does not. I want you to understand how value assessment actually works in reality. So what is the cost? What kind of how would I say, phenomena get factored into determining a person's, I guess, for lack of a better expression, karmic score, which would, I guess, indicate whether or not they're considerably corrupt or considerably redeemable. All right? So humans are like, oh, I'm a good person in my community. I go to church. I pay my tithes. I give to the poor. I'm a good person. And they've made this series of agreements with themselves that have absolutely nothing to do with how things work in reality. If you're a good citizen, then that means that it's like you're a prominent agent of corruption in society. It was good citizens who killed Jesus and Gandhi. These people trying to demonstrate their goodness to their social groups. But it gets a little bit deeper than that, though, right? So let's say being a good citizen entails going to work and, gathering resources, paying resources, doing things to not anger society towards making authority figures sort of target you and lash out with aggression and contempt. Let's say that that's your definition of what makes you a good person, all right? You're necessarily part of and attempting to excel within a system that's trying to override and destroy another system. You're a part of a system or a mode that's trying to overrun and destroy another system. The original system is reality. Society is a supplanted system. the more you excel in society, and or the more you acquire in the way of wealth, is the more imbalances you create within society, which means that that's more aggress the entity and or the organism of society levies against the body of this planet. So you inadvertently help to create ripple effects that extend beyond your intentions, that extend beyond the system of society, that actually extend beyond the body of this planet. Trying to be a good citizen. Y'all go to church and you perpetuate these myths that steal attention away from reality trying to be heard, and in so you exacerbate the negative impact this species is making on this planet. Trying to compete against reality is a horrible offense in reality's eyes, because it means that it's like you are a decided agent of corruption. When you're a decided agent of corruption, reality necessarily views you as an enemy. So in your attempt to be good and or demonstrate goodness to others, you end up making an enemy out of the system of reality itself. But even in that, there are gradations in there. I really need time to sit down and actually map out everything that goes into explaining. Everything that goes into explaining the math behind assessing your debt score to reality. Every negative impact you make on reality, it's counted against you. It's counted against you. And a lot of you, all of us, we were born into a system that sort of dumped a lot of karmic debt on us. Very much in the way we were born into economies that dumped a bunch of fiat debt onto us. But society, again, trains you to think exclusively in terms of self-interest. Let's say that you haven't participated in society, you haven't done anything to litter, you haven't caused any harm to people, but let's say you don't live for balance, and as such your diet is way off and you've tattooed your body everywhere. Reality doesn't begin and end with your experience. You are a universe unto yourself. All the damage you caused to your body being out of balance, you did that to other life forms. That shit gets charged back to you. It's not just meta stuff that gets charged to you. It's micro stuff as well. It's stuff internally. If you're not taking care of yourself properly, if you're living out of balance and you're living exclusively like a parasite to satisfy your appetites, to satisfy and indulge your desires for comforts, convenience, and satisfaction, then it's like, you know what? You make negative impacts on the world around you, but you also make negative impacts on the world within you. And all of this imbalance you've caused, contributed to, and lived within, it gets charged back to your principal expression. It gets charged back to your soul. Reality is a system. It's a living, sentient, and self-aware system. And the reason why it's important to understand that is because if we were to try and anthropomorphize it in a way that would make it easier to grasp for humans, then reality is a perfect accountant. It manages balance between systems and interdependent systems of systems, extending up to the two most meta systems that we are aware of, existence and non-existence. And yes, non-existence is a system. It's a system. Y'all go around here trying to make everything comfortable and convenient for you, but at what cost? Look at all these people over the course of the last weekend who went out and bought all these fireworks. Now, they didn't manufacture the fireworks, so, the people who did that trying to, survive in society, they've created imbalances within the world that they will have to necessarily answer for. But the people who just got them for entertainment purposes, I want you to just think about this. How many bugs do you think they killed? Blowing shit up for fun. How much pollution did they add to the environment just entertaining themselves? All of it gets charged back to them. When you cut somebody off in traffic, right? You might have done a dick thing. You might have done like just what seems to be a dick thing to you. But let's say you cut that person off and that person gets angry. And then once they get onto the road, they go home and they snap and they kill their spouse. Part of that, being you triggering them, gets charged back to you. In the system of reality, reality doesn't care if you think you weren't involved. Yeah, you were. Let's say you're some asshole who's driving and you want to speed check the person behind you because it's like you have it in your mind that you are the authority, and so long as you're in front, you're going to make them bend to your will. What happens if a person was trying to get home because they heard there was a fire, no one could find their kid, and the kid ends up dying because you were being a fucking retarded asshole? It gets charged back to you. And then the level of anguish they feel, that actually gets channeled up to society's hive mind, and it makes society's hive mind more aggressive towards the body of this planet, thereby creating more cognitive dissonance in all of the drones. This little act of you being a narcissistic dick created a ripple effect that spread throughout the entire sociosphere. And all of that gets charged back to you. This is why in my work I spend so much time trying to promote conscientiousness. I told you I'm no fan of the golden rule. And the reason why is because I find it to be short-sighted. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you necessarily means treat others ideally. When you treat others ideally, you're dealing with them in idealism. What is good for you may not be good for someone else, but more importantly, if you treat others the way you want to be treated, then you open the door for them to be greedy, aggressive little parasites towards you. So I think the golden rule is pretty short-sighted. However, the silver rule, which is do no harm to others, it demands conscientiousness, conscientious living. I see animals, I see little insects, and I don't step on them. I do my best to avoid stepping on them. You know why? Because I'm not trying to get that negative impact. I'm not trying to increase my debt, my score. I do my best to try and create goodness in the world, and not motivated by a desire to benefit from reality in any way, shape, or form, but because through the enlightenment process, I came to understand how the karmic debt, if that's what you want to call it, works, and how far in the red I actually was, even though I was never a truly bad person by social standards. But I did a lot of things sort of being lost in my inner story and wilding out and being narcissistic, that created untold ripple effects that I'm trying to reverse engineer. I'm trying to reverse engineer the ripple effects. Hey, where did I do something that created a ripple effect that made the world, that made reality a worse place for everyone? How do I offset that? This is part of conscientiousness. When you live a conscientious life, you realize all the messes you've made, and you want to go back and clean them up, not because you fear consequence, but because cleaning up the messes you make is the right thing to do. If you go into somebody's house and you just lounge about and you get in your drawers and you eat up all their food and you just leave shit everywhere. If you're a narcissist, then you're like, oh, I'm a guest, so I can do whatever I want. If you're a conscientious person, you're like, I have made a mess of this place. Let me clean it up. That's very much what it's like in reality. You are a guest here. Not even a guest, you're an unwanted guest. You barged in. You said, we're here to fuck shit up. You got to work feng shuiing everything so that it was comfortable and convenient for you. That's how the socialization process trains you. It trains you to think at the level of self-interest. The problem is, when it comes to understanding reality, the very first lesson, the very first principle you need to grasp is none of this shit is free. You don't get to just make messes wherever you go and then determine the cost for the cleanup. You don't get to arbitrarily determine the price tag for what it takes to clean up messes you've made. Vanity, pride will get you in trouble. All these people coming to me with their pride, chest thumping, not realizing every attempt to be defiant, every attempt to be subversive, every attempt to be either directly or passively aggressive towards me puts them in deeper and deeper into a state and condition there are no words for. Nobody makes you be a dick. When I was growing up, I was always told this one expression: when bad association spoils useful habits. When you hang around people, especially echo chambers and social groups, who encourage you to be a narcissistic dick, they can't make you be terrible, but they can encourage you to, and they can encourage you to self-idealize and to think that you have the leverage and the pull to dictate costs in reality to reality itself. But I absolutely guarantee you, you lose that battle every time. You practice being an asshole by practicing hanging around assholes. You hang around corrupt people, they're going to corrupt you. But your arbitrary assessments of value have no bearing on reality. The agreements you make with yourself or make with each other about me, they have no bearing on reality. Oh, he's just talking shit. Oh, he's talking out of his ass. You can believe that all you want to. You can try and convince yourself of that until you're blue in the face. It doesn't change anything. The agreements you make with yourself have no power in reality. None. Pride. I know that pride is one of the main tools I won't say tools. Pride is more like a weapon. Pride is one of the most primary weapons we receive in reality and what we use as fuel to sort of propel ourselves towards our goals and our dreams and things of that nature. And we come to see pride as this all-purpose tool. We think pride is tantamount to discipline. And we think pride is tantamount to, self-accountability. And we think pride is tantamount to pushing us to go further when we're ready to give up, right? In reality, pride is simply self-worship. You don't need to worship yourself to be disciplined. You don't need to worship yourself to be driven. You don't need to worship yourself or idealize yourself to accomplish tasks or move towards goals. You can do all of that actually more effectively without pride sort of putting this big mirror, this intraversible mirror in front of you. This obstacle you can't get over. But you do not determine the cost of things in reality. Your agreements do not determine the cost of things in reality. As a matter of fact, your agreements and the laws you guys come up with, your little laws of physics, your little laws of this and laws of that, that's agreements you've made with yourselves based on what can be perceived and what can be inferred based on what's perceived. It's very one-sided. Has nothing to do with how reality functions as a system. You know how to achieve effects that are relevant to you, relevant to your species, and your interests and your goals and your desires. And you say that that's how things are in reality, but that's just one side of a multi-sided phenomenon. You know, one side of a puzzle with almost infinite sides. If you don't know the cost of anything really, it is in your best interest to be mindful of where you step and how you tread. I got anybody out there tonight? I don't know if I do. I know I got some notifications over here. I'm not tripping. I know Facebook like to play a lot or whatever. I tell you, man, as a species, man, y'all let your pride march you, just pointlessly march you into battles that just simply don't need to exist. Let pride march you into battles that don't need to be a thing. Oh, yeah. I'm going to put him in his place. He said he doesn't like this thing. Well, I'm going to show him. I'm going to do it. And I dare him to do something about it. Your little dares. If we met in the street, I'm a 45-year-old man. 45-year-old man. And, oh, shit, right now I'm back. I'm finally back to like in my 190s. All right. It's like, shit. I don't have that fast twitch muscle anymore. I'm not going to try and knuckle up with you, man. Like, oh, I'll show him. He can't beat me in a battle of fisticuffs. No. The damage that I do happens when flesh heals. Flesh heals. The damage, I don't even say I do. I say the thing that I'm hosting does, which I'm connected to as I'm its house for this cycle. The damage that it does is just so much worse than anything that guns, fists, knives, or bombs can do. Flesh heals, or it expires. Spirit doesn't. getting ripped, having all of your potential ripped away violently, it's worse than anything that you can imagine. But you're going to try and put me in my place, right? Not realizing that it's like your hostile stance against me necessarily pits you against a thing that can't wait to get free from me so that it can wreck you. Are you fucking insane? Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, whatever you call it. Avatar perspective. It hates corruption. If you have any sort of animosity towards me, it is because corruption has a stronghold on you. If corruption has a stronghold on you, it's only because it's like you practice narcissism, competition, and aggression on a regular basis. You practice these things, you become a host of corruption. The avatar perspective fails to see the difference between you and corruption, and the only thing it wants to do is obliterate you and take back everything that you took with unimaginable interest. Your pride will be your downfall. And I get it. You know, it's a lot of folks out here who are dealing with trauma. Trauma is fucked up. I grew up being traumatized. I grew up learning to fear and develop within myself a deep-seated phobia of disempowerment due to the fact that I was severely abused for many years. And you get a little bit of power, you get a sense of identity, and you build that around the power that you have, and you become deathly afraid of losing it. And pride is what keeps your power base safe and intact. I get it. Probably get it better than you. I do. Thing is, it's such a limited weapon. Pride is such a flimsy weapon. Like if you want real weapons, get reasoning as a weapon. And not trying to use logic to defeat people. I mean, using reasoning, using your mental faculties to suss out what's most consistent with reality. It puts you so far ahead of people who are pride driven that if you must have a weapon, have that one. You know? But as a person who used to hide behind their pride, and a person who was narcissistic because narcissism sort of fed my power base, and I was driven towards reality by trauma, by this deep-seated fear of being disempowered. Long story short of it is, what made me a cowardly asshole, and you have to forgive me if the words sort of trailed off there because I kind of got lost in my thought, but dude, it didn't make me stronger, it made me weaker. Pride didn't make me stronger, it made me weaker. So, you know, you coming to me with this flimsy sword trying to cut me down, I upgrade it to a more powerful tool. You can't. Your pride cannot defeat my reasoning, period. Your pride cannot defeat my reasoning ability, even when I'm not reading principles. Your pride is no match for my ability. Ever. And the funny part about it is, you can develop the ability too. And I could say you could try and bring your reasoning to my reasoning when you developed it into a formidable weapon, but the funny part about it is reasoning is a tool, it's not a weapon. So we would only sync up. Again, if you're not familiar, tool is an instrument you use to accomplish tasks with and or advance with in some way, shape, or form. Whereas a weapon is an instrument you use to either injure or subdue others towards either dispatching with them or subjugating and exploiting them in some way, shape, or form. A tool is something you use to advance. A weapon is something you use to beat and or hold others back with. Pride is a weapon. Reasoning is a tool. Tools trump weapons every single time. You want to know why? Because a weapon only serves one purpose, and that's to push others and or hold others back, to subdue and defeat them. A tool, you can build in any number of ways with a tool, but more importantly, in the event that you need a weapon, a tool becomes a weapon instantly. Think about it like this. If you have a sword, the sword is only good for sword fighting. If you have a knife you can cut things with, you can bore things out with, and in a pinch, a knife can become a weapon. A hammer you can use to pound nails in with, or you can use the claw to pull nails out with. You can use it to tap things into place. You can use it with a wedge to split things. You can build with a tool. You can use it in any number of ways, but with a weapon, a hammer can become a weapon in a pinch. You look at a gun is only good for firing. A gun is only good for firing rounds. If you try to use it as a hammer, then you run the risk of damaging it and losing access to the weapon. A gun serves one purpose: to fire bullets. Hammer serves multiple purposes, and in a pinch can become a formidable weapon. That's just like pride and reasoning. Reasoning and honesty are mutually inclusive, but this is the way that it works at a mechanical level. Reasoning can become any number of things. Pride is only good for one thing: self-worship, self-idealizing. And then all it takes is someone to come along and, expose holes in your self-image towards invalidating your pride, and that becomes useless then too. But the very worst thing about pride is that pride prevents you. It prevents you from recognizing and syncing up with reality. Now, why is it important to understand that? It's because when you can't understand and sync up with reality, and you allow your pride to do all the thinking for you, then you will make agreements with yourself about the types of impacts you've made on reality as a system based on how you view yourself as a social character. You've made tons of messes that you're not even aware of. And if you're a narcissist, then you're kind of like, oh, my messes aren't that bad. In reality, the system is like, are you fucking kidding me? What? Or the phenomenon you guys will refer to as God. You've already forgiven yourself on behalf of God. Has that even dawned on you yet? You've forgiven yourself for all the negative impacts you've made on reality and the world, on all the imbalances you've caused and contributed to, not just in terms of the planet, but even within your own sociospheres. Yet you absolved yourself of any wrongdoing, said God forgives you, and that you're chosen, you're blessed and highly favored. Ripple effects. All tracing back to you being a narcissistic little shit. A self-indulgent asshole who thinks your experience and your feelings and beliefs and your values and your comfort and convenience should take priority and precedence over everyone and everything else. How many messes have you made in the world that you never even bothered to acknowledge in order to clean them up? How many? You've made enemies out of God, an enemy out of God. You've made an enemy out of God just being a narcissistic dick. And again, it's not your fault. The socialization process trains you to be a narcissist. But even in it not being your fault, being conscientious or choosing not to be conscientious, that is your fault. It's your fault. Choosing not to think because thinking is hard and inconvenient, that's on you. Choosing to let your pride turn you into a weapon and an enemy against reality itself and against those who speak on behalf of reality, that's on you. You nurture your vanity. You nurture your competitive spirit. You nurture your aggression. You feed those appetites, and when you are high on the idea of yourself and you do some stupid shit, you don't get to say, oh, it's not my fault. Especially if you practiced being a dick. And you practice being a dick, you do. Ooh, I still ain't got any comments tonight. I like that. I don't expect to get a lot of comments these days, man, because it's like I know y'all are I know you're kind of in froze mode. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what to do with me. You're like, yo, this man, he says a lot of stuff, but he makes a lot of sense. Stuff he says doesn't match, fit with, or conform to what I've learned and accepted as fact, but somehow all of his shit seems to fit and flow together exceptionally well, and it doesn't invalidate any of the things that, or any of the core principles I build my now belief system on. So who is he? What is he? Why is he? What's he doing? You know, something most people don't realize is that, again, I'm making this frame as simple as possible. The humans are a transmuted species. They represent corrupt structural building blocks belonging to a parasitic twin universe, which is burrowing into, cannibalizing, and transforming the body of the universe we're currently co-opting, right? Anything that's beholden to corruption, it works like a disease. It spreads pathologically and goes in and destroys and wreaks havoc. And the corrupt cellular building blocks, or whatever you call them, they invade systems and overtake them and just live and benefit at the expense of things. This extends up to the universal scale of plane. So regardless of whether or not you are a human watching this, or you're a product of extraterrestrial AI watching this, and I know that y'all are out there too, you cannot think above, or you certainly can't perform above the level of the framing I've supplied. You can't. Even if you're an alien, you can't perform above what I've said. Even if you come across other avatars from other planets and you've archived everything that they said and they made the same types of sense that I'm making, you cap out. You cap out before I do in terms of awareness and understanding for reality as a system. You do. You're just cellular building blocks, regardless of how advanced you see yourself as being, or the technological advances you've been able to achieve. You're still just corrupt structural building blocks belonging to a universe that's trapped between a state of life and death. You can call yourself gods, you can marvel over all the shit that you've done, and again, you can try to 8 Mile me, you can try to beat me to the punch with the things that I'm saying, but I'm performing at the level of reality. You are still based in idealism. You can't win. You can't win, and the more you fight is the worse it gets. There's not going to be a hell once this fuse between the universes is formed. Anything that remains in a state of corruption, and some of you all are several generations of cycles into the hell, earth, hell universe, like fucking, bleh, I don't know what you call it. Well, life cycle? Life cycle? So the amount of negative impacts you've made on the body of this universe alone, they're unfathomable. Like, just the consequences that come out of that are just insane. It's probably best for you to link up with your boy and figure out what's what. I mean, at the very least, we can start at least getting you moving in the right direction, because, I mean, geez, it's just a mess. And it's not your fault. This is the worst part about it. As much as it's like, there are certain things, especially those of you all who I think were involved in doing some stuff regarding my son. You are in a bad situation. Oh my God, you're in a bad situation. But even in saying that, I'm keenly aware of the fact that this is not your fault. You were born into a circumstance and or emergent from a circumstance that you had no hand in creating or contributing to. So as much as I want to hate you, I pity you. And not even pity, because it sounds kind of dismissive. I empathize with what you're going through. You know, me being born into an abusive home and having to endure it, there are a lot of times when it's like I wanted to internalize the corruption myself, and maybe also learn how to use others as things to transfer my anger and frustration into. I did for a while when I was young. I did that in my racist video. I talked about that. But I get it, man. You're still responsible for the impacts you make on reality. You got to clean your shit up. If you made messes, you got to clean them up. If you make messes in reality, you've got to clean them up. Or do what you can to clean them up. And if you can't clean them up, go and try and create balance somewhere else. Do what you can to give back to the system you've taken from, because if you don't, the system will take from you, and with unimaginable interest. You don't set the cost. In reality, you don't. Anywho, guys, it is your man. I'm about to sign off here. Sorry about getting started so late. Again, I'm still in Indiana with my little boy. I love that kid so much, man. He's just the cutest thing, man. Man, he's getting big. I if I didn't have to do the Avatar thing and I could spend more time with him in a heartbeat. Like that's the one really messed up thing about all of this falling in my lap at the time that it did is, or better yet, like him coming into the world and the circumstances he did. It's just, I wear too many hats. And man, that kid is just everything to me, though. Jeez. Anyway, yeah, it's like, so I got started late because I've been spending the day with him. Yeah. I never understand how people don't get a chance to fall in love with their kids because, man, what an honor and a privilege to be in that little dude's life, man. I'm grateful. Guys, y'all already know what it is. I shoot these on Mondays and Wednesdays at Facebook Live, even though technically I've bled slightly into Tuesday on this one. Yeah, so I shoot these on Facebook Live. You can catch me on Instagram. I post videos every now and again, a little bit shorter videos. Also, I fly all of these videos to my YouTube channel. I actually need to upload like 5 or 6 videos to my YouTube channel, but they'll be done hopefully within the next few days or so. I stay busy, and then by the time I settle down, I'm kind of like, oh God, I have to upload. Oh my God. But yeah, I need to be on top of that. Also, I post content to Medium, and if you get any sort of appreciation out of what I do, and you want to bless your boy with a little bit of love, you can always cash app your boy Donniekang, DonnieKang, and also feel free to join the Patreon family. All proceeds go to building this up to a larger platform. Again, my goal is to reach as many people as I can before I'm out of this body. I don't know how much time I got left in this. I don't, because that's a really weird thing about the Avatar perspective. You can see how everything fits together in the present, but you can't see the future. So I do what I can to be effective now. And it is what it is, man. Yo, I appreciate those of y'all who tuned in. Again, I'm not sure how many people are going to be rocking with me these days because, shit's getting intense. It's getting kind of wild. Like, the Avatar perspective is having its say. And anybody who's siding with corruption, who wants to walk that path, I wouldn't suggest it, but they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what they're going to do. Anywho, that being said, we're just going to do a little recap. The actual cost of things in reality has absolutely nothing to do with your arbitrary assessment of value or the things that you decide. You do not decide the cost of impacts on reality. Reality does. You do not decide what it takes to offset imbalances you create reality. Reality does. If you wanna get right in reality, you consult reality. You know how you consult reality? Reasoning and honesty. You know what I'm saying? If truth, and this is, I try and explain this to you all, so I'm gonna break it down for you again. Reality is the phenomenon you refer to as God. It's a living, sentient, self-aware system. Manages balance between systems and interdependent systems and systems. Truth is simply what is consistent with and actual within reality. All right? Reasoning is using the mental faculties to suss out what is most consistent with reality. Honesty is the individual's will and effort to recognize and be in sync with reality. Intuition is the sensory faculty that connects you to reality, which expands your sphere of awareness from beyond the mortal coil. That's what it boils down to, right? You want to get in sync with reality? Practice reasoning, honesty. Through reasoning and honesty, you develop your faculty of intuition. You expand your sphere of awareness. Then all of a sudden, you start seeing all of these impacts you've made on the system. But until you do that, You're never going to know truth. If you don't know truth, you'll forever have the slave mind. It's your man. I'm out.